Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the School Manager Part 14. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to create this really amazing week view scheduling with drag and drop, so you can complete drag and drop on any different day or any different time, and it's going to work automatically just like we did the day view. I've also got an incredible, amazing filter and a whole lot more, including a really cool pop-up calendar. I cannot wait. Let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you sticking with us on this incredible series where we're building a massive school manager application. It's been a great journey, and now we're on the week view scheduling. We finished up the day view last week, and now we're going to finish up this incredible week view. We're going to do it all this week. We're going to do it all this lesson. So I'm going to show you how to create this really cool dynamic drag and drop week view schedule complete with dynamic days. We'll be able to use previous and next week. We'll have a this week button, and we'll create a pop-up calendar so we can select any particular week on the calendars automatically. Of course, that's going to include drag and drop feature as well. We're going to have a brand new filtering feature. And what do I mean by that? I want to put a filtering feature, something like this, so that when we select a specific student or specific teacher or a subject, it's going to automatically show up. So if I want to show only math, it's going to automatically update show only math, and that filter is also going to be showing up here. This is the sample, so I'll be closing this, and we're going to be creating one from the scratch just as we've been doing each and every week. We'll be building on last week's application. All right, if you like these trainings, I do create these each and every week for you. All I ask you to do is just to subscribe to our channel by clicking on the subscription, and don't forget that notification icon bell, because that's going to send you an email right when I release these, and I'll make sure you're one of the first ones to watch it. And of course, you can get this workbook downloaded for free using the links in the description, either with your Facebook or with your email, and we'll get that sent over right away to you. I really do appreciate you. These trainings are always free each and every week. If you do like these workbooks, I've got over 175 of them for just $66, and that's actually less than 37 cents a piece for 175 of my best applications. If you like Excel and you want to take your knowledge and create passive income with it, I've been doing that for many years with my own applications, putting them on the market. Now I'm teaching you that in the Excel for Freelancers mentorship program. What we're doing is we're taking our application, accounting application, and we're going to creating it from the ground up in a full scale, amazing week by week application. So we'll be doing that in the mentorship program. Right now you can join for just $7. I've got a brand new promotion. That's going to get you 5 weeks of training. That's going to include almost 8 hours of training and a ton of downloads. That'll get you started, and you can decide if you like it. If you don't want to continue, no need to continue, no obligation. But I thought I'd help you out. Those links are in the description, so I'd really appreciate that. All right, let's get started. We've got a lot to cover this week. We're going to be creating this week view. It's going to be much easier than the day view because a lot of it's done already. This is the sample, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. We're going to put it away, and we're going to get right to work on the one we've been working on last week. That is this one right here, where we have a day view, and there's nothing on the week view here. So the first thing I want to do on this day view, and I'm going to do the same thing on the week view, is I want to create this filter. So when I've created a filter, let's say I'm only going to create a specific teacher or a specific filter, I want to know that that filter exists, right? I want to know. For example, let's say we put a specific filter only on this teacher, right? And I'm looking at this teacher. So when we want to filter out, let's say a teacher, let's say John Jacobs, we want to feature out, all we need to do is just simply filter out here and check, and then I want that filter to show up here. I want to know what was filtered, right? I want to know that. So how are we going to do that? Well, we do that with just a little bit of a text filter. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this right here, and then I'm going to paste it down here, right down here. So I'm going to make it smaller. That's where I'm going to create the filter. We'll drop this down here, and I'll make it about, let's see, 17 or 18 or something like that. That should be sufficient here. And I want that filter to appear down here, maybe a little bit less. And then what I want to do is I want this filter linked to a specific cell. So when I make changes in that cell, then I want that cell to reflect the filter. So we'll put it down here, say we want to put it right around B23. So we can do that. Just change this to B23. And that way we'll just, again, we'll reset the font color here and reset the font size here. So we can do that. That does happen every time. And then what we'll do is we can then update this. There's nothing in it right now, which is fine. And so what I want to do is I want to put some text in here. We're just going to call this current filter. And so what I want this filter to do is to reflect any of those 5 potential filters that they have in here. So, but only if there's a current filter. Otherwise, I don't want it to show anything. So we can do something like this. If equals if, And then what we'll do is maybe start out with J5, right? If J5 is equal to, we'll put all students, and we're not going to put anything there. All students. In that case, there's nothing we need to do. So we could just do put there's nothing. Otherwise, we want to show something. What do I want to put? I want to put what student we're going to be showing up. So I'm going to put student, and then we can put in, let's say, the greater than, and just to show what student we're showing. And then I want to put the and sign. I want to show, and then what student they've selected. Okay, so good. I like that so far. We'll go up here. It's going to be, and then so that's good. But what else do I want to show? And in fact, let's add a space right before. I'll add a space before the next one. So I'm going to copy this right here, and then we'll just continue on with that. But in this case, we're going to do J6. J6 is the teachers. So I'm going to change this to 6. I'm going to change this to 6. I'm going to change this to teachers, right? We're focused on teachers here. If J6 is equal to all teachers, then do nothing. Otherwise, we want to put what teacher is here. So we'll just put in teacher, and then J6. But I want to put in a space right here because in case there's a student and a teacher, I want to put a space between there. So I'm going to copy this right here, and then I'm going to do the same thing exactly for room. So now we can display the room. So again, it would be all rooms. So we're changing that to rooms. And then also I want to put room here, and that's going to be J7, right? Rooms, focus on room. What room is that? J7. We're changing it to 7, and then changing it to 7 here. And we're going to do the same thing for subject. So and in this case, let's drop that down here. Now we're focused on subjects. So we have all rooms and now all subjects. So we can change this here to subjects, and then also change this to subject. And of course, we're going to make that J8. And then the last one we're going to be doing is the class type. So we'll change that to subject, and then this is going to be J8, and then this is also going to be 8. And the last one, we can remove the and sign for the end because that's going to be it. We're going to change that to J9 here. We're going to change this to J9. We're going to also change it to types, right? So this time it's types, all types, if it's not equal types. And then we'll put in something like called class type here, class type, and then we'll put whatever is in J9. Okay, so we'll take a look at that, and then we'll say, okay, perfect. So equals if. Now that we got the teacher here, in case we're showing up the teacher, we do need all subjects. All subject isn't correct, so we need to update that. Let's take a look at that. All teachers, all rooms, all subjects, right? Too many S's in there, so that's not going to work. Okay, good. I like that. So now it says teacher John Jacobs. We know that filter is there, teacher. So here's our filter here. Let's bring this down a little bit, not this one. This one here, bring it down a little bit. So we've got and I'll bring it over here. So that way it's kind of centered over that. This is going to be good for the day view, and we're also going to use it for the week view too. So I'm just going to copy that. I like it. So now what if we add another one? If I add another one, let's say I want to show now only a certain room and a certain day, so we can do all rooms, room 1, and I want that room to show up too. So now it says John Jacobs, room 1. Okay, so I like that. We can add a separator in there, something like that, but it's okay for now. It gives us an idea of what the current filter is. And if there's no filters, then it should be empty. Perfect. Just what I like. So it's not going to show anything if it's all filters. Okay, good. See, it's disappeared. So I like that. All right, good. So we're good with that. Now what I want to do is I want to create, basically I want to box all this up. We've got, if you notice, we've got some text box here, and we've got a text box here. So what I want to do is I want to group all that, and I want to call it a day view group, because I want that group to be hidden if we're not on the day view. We're going to need that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the control, and I'm going to click all of these, including the hidden one, and I'm going to group them together, and then I'm going to call this day view group. And don't forget, after you group something, right, or regroup it, you always need to make sure that we're moving but not sizing it. So it's going to go into the properties here, move but don't size, because often we move these columns, we want to make sure we're not sizing it. I'm going to do something very similar for the week view, so I wanted to make sure. I'm going to remove this now. As much as you may want to join the mentorship programs, we don't need to see that right now, do we? Okay, so I'll just bring that down here, but don't forget, it's there. If you want to join us, we're happy to have you. All right, so coming down here, we're going to start and create that week view. I'm going to bring it somewhere. We've got enough space, but I'll probably start it out at BN. So I'm going to copy this here. In fact, I can just copy all of this all the way down to create. There it is, all the way down here. Let's remove it, huh? We don't need it right now. So I'm going to copy this here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that. It's going to be the first day of our week. We're just going to probably right around, say, BN2. Right about here. That gives us enough room in case we want to do anything. Okay, so we've got it there, and maybe we'll make it. We're going to need some more space on this. I think the column should be probably around 24 or so. So let's do 24 because we're going to use long dates in here. So I want it a little bit. This will be the date. Okay, so we'll be a formula based on that. All of this are going to be hidden. And so what I'm just going to do is for now, we're just going to hide that. And then eventually what we'll do. So our week view is going to be here. So we have our day view here, but our date's going to go here. So it's going to be something like 1-1. Put in a date, but I want a long date. So it's going to be something like, I'll just put in this long date here. Okay, so basically I want to duplicate that pretty much 7 times, and then we'll work with that. We don't need the shape. We don't need that. We can delete that. We don't need necessarily. It's going to be removed when we refresh the schedule, but we don't need it when we're copying. I'm going to copy that, paste it in here, and paste it in here. Okay, so we've got 3, and then all we need to do is simply highlight those. We can bring this up here now. And so simply we just need to copy these here and then paste them again, and then one more. So it's going to get us the 7 days a week, potentially 7 days, but we may be showing less than that. Okay, we don't need that button there, do we? No. So we're going to group any groups that we have. I'm just going to select everything, any shapes that might have shown up there. We don't need those. So highlight. So we have our 7 days here. Again, I'm going to highlight there, make sure that any shapes that showed up, we don't need those. Delete. Okay. So now we've got our dates, and now basically all we're going to do is this one is going to be equal this plus 1. And I do want to show a long date on here, not this one. I should have set it for long date. So not the custom, but I do want to long date. I want to show the day, the date, and everything. So I'm holding down the control, and we're going to set this long date. Long date, that's what I want, the long date. I want to make sure that we have enough in here. And some days, like let's say October 10th or Wednesday or something like that, would show long. So let's do 10, 10. Make sure that we have enough space. So that's kind of a long date like there. Make sure we have enough space in that. We may want to reduce the font a little bit, but we're okay for now. But if it starts to show that, we can reduce the font. Let's reduce it 1. I'm going to reduce it 1 pixel just so we don't have to have such long columns. So I'm going to start from here. This is our day view. This is going to be hidden. So we'll go to, let's say, font size 10 pixels. Okay, good. I like that. So what we want to do now is basically I'm going to duplicate this group here and then customize it for our day view. So for our week view. So I'm going to copy that here. And then inside here, starting right here, I'm going to paste that in here. This is going to be our, I'm going to put this, start it right over here. This is going to be our week view. So this we're going to change to this week. So let's do that. This week, and we need to extend the button, right? The width of that button, probably to about 0.9 or something like that. And then I'm just going to hold the control down. I'm going to bring those over here so we can get it. Okay, I like that. That looks good. And of course, what I want in this case is I want not a single date, but I want multiple days based on the first and the last day of that. So I want to combine that. But before we do that, let's go ahead and create a macro that's going to hide all this day view, right? I don't want to see this, right? When I click this week, I only want to see this. So let's do that right now. Now we've created this day view group, so we want to make sure we're going to rename that month view group. We're going to rename that, make sure we call that month view and not day view because we just copied that over. So we're going to have to display or hide that according to what view is showing up. Also, we want to make sure that, again, we want to make sure that we are sizing just to double and moving but not sizing. Okay, so that's set up. So let's go into the specific macro where we're going to be able to create those views. And we'll create one macro that we're going to simply hide that. So into the VBA, schedule miscellaneous is where we're going to start because that's where it's going to be for all those. And we have a few macros here already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it down here. And I'm going to create a brand new macro called sub schedule. And this one I want to just basically hide everything. So we're going to call this schedule hide all views. What that's going to do is hide all shapes. And when we get the month view, it's going to include that. So first thing what we want to do is to want to mention the lesson shape because I want to basically hide all the lesson shape as a shape. Okay, and then with the schedule, that's what we're going to be focusing on. And the first thing what we want to do is we want to obviously hide all those group shapes. So dot shapes. And the first one is going to be the day. And what do we call this? Let's copy the name, make sure we've got it correct. So we've got a month view group and day view group. So that's what we're going to be using. So day view group dot visible equals MSO false. Obviously, we're going to hide that. And we're going to do the same thing for, of course, the week view. And we're going to do the same thing for the month view, although we don't have the month view yet. But we can put it in and just comment it out for now. That's a lot easier because we know we're going to do it. As long as we have the name right, call that out. probably, hopefully next week, we're going to be getting to the month view. That's going to be great. A week view. Okay, so we're going to change this to week view. What I also want to do is hide any and all the shapes, right? Those are the schedule shapes. Now, we've written that already. Inside, let's take a look at the day view. We've already written that. We've hidden all those. So all we need to do is, all those scheduling lesson shapes, we need to hide those, right? I don't want those displayed. So I'm going to go into the schedule here, the day view, and we've already hidden it. So all I need to do is go into this one right here. You see this particular one for each lesson in shape, that hides all the lessons. So I want to do that. When we're changing from day view to week view or month view, we need to hide all the existing shapes. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hide all the shapes. So I'm going to copy that, and we're going to go back into the schedule miscellaneous, and then I'm going to scroll up here, and I'm just going to paste that down here. So for each lesson shape, we've already defined the lesson shape. We can do that correctly with the lowercase h, just as we did, equals, and then for each shape for each lesson shape in schedule shapes. And again, in this case, we're inside the schedule, so we don't need this particular schedule, right? We're already inside that. Okay, so what that's going to do is clear all the shapes. It's going to clear those groups. And also what I want to do is I want to hide all the columns. So hide all the columns. So what columns are we going to do? Well, if we're talking all the columns, at least containing both the week and the day view, we're going to go all the way from, let's say, BZ, which we need BZ, and then we're going to do all the way from, let's take a look, BN through BZ. Yeah, we'll make it easy. Actually, I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to remove one little column here. I'm going to start the first day in BN, just so make it a little easier. So I'm just going to remove one single column here. That's going to be fine. Delete. Okay, so I want the first one to be in BN and then ended up on BZ. It's a little bit easier. So BZ is the last column for the week view, and we're going to hide all the way. So from O to BZ, we want to hide all those. So let's write that in here. Let's write it up here beneath, and we'll do it here. I want to do it up here above the existing shape. So that's all together. Dot range, and then O to BZ. O colon BZ. We're going to focus on all the columns. So entire column dot hidden equals true, right? We want to hide everything. And then based on the specific view, whether it's day view, week view, or month view, we can then show the columns and then show the individual shapes. So that's all we need to do for that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's all we need to do. That's just going to basically hide everything on there. We've commented out month view because we don't have that. So let's do this. Let's write the first one. We're going to show the day view. So sub schedule and then show day view. So with this one, it's very, very simple. Again, we're going to with the schedule. And then what I want to do is first thing I want to do is run this macro. It's going to hide. So every time we click the day view, it's going to hide that. Going to schedule hide all views. And then what we're going to do is we're going to show specific columns. So I'm going to just copy this and then update the columns accordingly and make sure that's visible. So starting with O, and where are we going to go? We're going to go all the way to the last possible one for the day view. So we have to unhide all of those. So these are all the day view, potential day view columns. We left a lot. So BB is the last one, last potential one. Then we've got some extra columns, and then we start our week view on BM, and then BN is the first day. Okay, so we have that. So day view we want to show to BB. So let's write that in O to BB. So we'll change this to BB. Entire column equals hidden equals false. So now we're displaying it. And also, of course, the day view group, this one we actually want to display. So we're going to show that dot visible equals MSO true. That'll help IntelliSense. Okay, so now that we have that, what else do I want to do? I want to refresh the schedule. It means I want to run the macro. It's actually going to load those lessons in. So what is that macro? Schedule day view, do them in lowercase, and then refresh, because if it goes to uppercase, I know I've got the right. So it's not right. Day view, refresh. Guessed wrong. That's all right. No problem. Schedule day view. It is schedule day view underscore refresh. Fair enough. Okay, so underscore and then refresh, and we'll do the same thing with the week view so that everything's consistent. All right, so that's it. That's all we have to do. The only other thing we might want to do is we want to stop the calculations, and then they're going to reset stop calculation. Of course, that's going to turn off screen updating. It's going to turn off calculations. Then when we run this macro, they're going to get reset. Remember, inside this macro, we will reset those calculations. We will turn on screen updating. We will turn on calculations. So that's fine. That's just going to make it a little bit quicker. This is the macro. So now all I need to do is just copy this macro. We're going to make one for the week view. Okay, so I'm going to go down here. We can do one for the month view too, and then just keep that empty, comment it out. So at least we have everything set. So schedule show month, and then what we'll do is we will show the week view. So now we've got day, week, and month all set up. So schedule, again, in this case, hide all views, but this case, what we're going to do is we're going to start with BM, and go all the way to BZ. Those are the columns that we're going to unhide. And then also in this case, we want to the week view group we want to display, and then we also want to run a macro called week view refresh. That macro doesn't exist yet. We're going to create that macro and module right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. I'm going to create a new module, insert module, and then what we're going to do is we're going to give this a name, go into the properties, and we're going to call this similar to the day, so it's going to be schedule, and then this is called week view. Okay, good. I like that. And then all we need to do is write a sub, and then we're going to paste that in there. So that's going to be the week view refresh. That's the subroutine that we're going to create for refreshing the week view. It's very similar to the day view as well. Okay, great. Now that we got that set, let's make sure the day view and the week view are all working properly, so we get that set up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that macro that we just created, I'm going to assign that right here to this button here. We had temporarily assigned another button. So I'm going to right click, assign the macro. We're looking for schedule, and in this call it's going to be day view. So we want to show the day view. That's the one we want to use. And this one we want to assign show the week view. So this one, assign the macro here, and then what we're going to do is schedule and then show the week view. Okay, so we've got that there, that's set up, and we'll do the month view next week. But also we want to do the same thing with these two here, right? These are the ones we want to show. Also this one here, again, day view on this one here. So assigning the macro to both the button and the icon. Click assign a macro. Schedule, you can type it in automatically, schedule if you remember it, or you can go down here and just go here and then scroll down to the show day view here. Okay, now that we have that, we're going to do the same thing with the week here, and that way both buttons act accordingly, exactly. And if they're lined up properly, it will look like they're just simply the same button and not different buttons. So that's what we want. That's the look that we're going after. Okay, schedule week view. That's the one, show week view. Here we go. All right, now we've got that signed up. If we click day view, we're going to say, okay, variable not defined. Let's just say lesson. Let's use this here in there, full there. Okay, reset that. Okay. Week view group. Let's see, did I miss that name? Obviously we did miss that name. So we check here, and then we just, oh, don't forget to reset it, right? You can't see the name unless you reset it. And then double check that name here, and then we got to assign it both to the correct, or just assign the name. Oh, we didn't give it a group, so we want to do that. Thought we did. Month view, month view. It's fixed now. All right, so we're good to go now. Let's go reset that macro. There we go. No issues there at all. And okay, blank, that's not showing. Good, we got the day view. Everything's hidden just the way we want it. Okay, let's go ahead and run the day view just by clicking it here, making sure that everything shows up accordingly, which it does. Clicking on day, clicking on week. Now we have it. Good. Okay, good. I like that. So we've got the day and the week showed up. Perfect. So notice how they kind of look right in the same space. That's exactly what I want. It looks like they're almost the same buttons. And so perfect. So now what I want to do, now that we have the day and the week view, I want to write, before I write the macros to refresh this, we need to get these dates correct. I want a date formula. It's a bit tricky because our starting date might be a Monday, might be a Tuesday, might be a Wednesday, and it's going to be all based on this admin. So when we go into the admin here, when we go into the scheduling portion of the admin, right here, we see that we're starting on a Monday right here. So we want to make sure that that first day of the week is based on this Monday. And we also, I only want to display those days on the schedule. So if Saturday and Sunday are hidden, here are not working, I don't want to display those on the week view. So we got a few things to think about. So let's focus on that right now. So let's give this a named range so we can use it inside the formulas. I'm going to call this start day. And we already have one here. This is already called weekdays. So we've got that there. That's going to help us out. So we can go and we can start writing our formula. Now inside the scheduling screen right here, we're going to base that first date off this, the from date. So I want to know the first day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, based on this date right here in B4. So we can start writing our formula right here inside. Let's click on the week view so we can focus on this week view. That's the one we want. We can close these filters. We don't need to see that. So, okay, so what is that formula? Well, since it's going to start based on B4, we're going to start out with that equals. I want B4. What I want to do is I want to subtract out based on the day of the week. So it's going to be equal to whatever's in B4, and then I'm going to subtract out. But I need to know what is the day of the week. What is the day of the week of B4? So weekday, we're going to use whatever's in B4. And then what is it exactly day week? Now our days start on Monday, so we're going to use 2. Remember, our weekdays start on Monday, so 2. Okay, so that's going to get us down. That's going to subtract out to the first day of whatever the first day of that specific week. But how do we time that in to what the day the user has chosen as their start date? Well, we need to add that back in. So plus, and how are we going to find that? We're going to use match. What are we matching? I'm going to look up that start day that we just created. That start day. That's a Monday, Tuesday, whatever. And we're going to match it with the weekdays. That's the named range of all those days of the week. And we want an exact match. Okay, so what that's going to do is create it automatically. So now you're going to see it's Monday. So if I go ahead and change that to a Tuesday, it should automatically update. And back inside the scheduling screen here, we see now it's Tuesday. So if we set it again to whatever day we want Friday, it's automatically going to be set. Okay, great. We know that's working. We're going to set it back to again to Monday as our start date, and then we can move on from there. Okay, good. So let's set it to Monday, and now we can continue on. So what else do we need? So now we've got all the days of the week. I want to make sure that each day of the week is simply equal to the next day. So we got to set the days, make sure that we have them. So again, this is going to be equal. So I'm just going to copy this, and then let's go ahead and set this. This shape here is a bit too low. We want to set everything up a little bit. Just move everything up a little bit. Okay, so we're going to copy this, and then all we need to do is just select on each day using the control, selecting them all, and then we're just going to paste those formulas in there, just like that. Okay, good. So now we got that. I'm going to paste those formulas in there, and that's going to update. So we have Monday through Sunday. Perfect. All right, and all the dates are in there. So what I want to do now is I want to create a small little macro that as when we select hide or unhide, I want those specific days to be hidden. So if they don't work Tuesdays, I want this column to be hidden. So how are we going to do that? Well, with just a little bit of a macro inside our week view module here. So we'll go into the week view module, and up here, what we'll do is we'll write sub schedule week view show or hide days. And then we'll run this macro when user selects those. So we're going to dimension the day number as long, and the schedule column use the same variables we did before, column as long. Okay, so we're focused on the scheduling screen. So with schedule, and then what are we going to do? We're going to hide non-school closed days. So what I'm going to do is just simply loop through those. So what are we going to loop through? I'm going to run a loop. So I want to run through the loop. So this is going to be our first. So what column is this? This is going to be column 66. So let's get rid of the date format. That's not going to help us at all. And then go to the general. Okay, so 66. So if we're going to go, we're going to loop through it. I want to loop all the way through. So 66. And then this one, of course, is going to be not a date again. I don't know why it thinks it's date 78. So we want to loop from 66 to 78, skipping, let's go, we could change that back to general, skipping 2. So stepping 2 is what we're going to do. 66 to 78, step 2. So let's write in that for next loop right now. So for the schedule column equals 66 to 78. And then stepping 2, right? Step 2. So on step 2, because it's every individual. So we'll close our loop. Next, schedule column. Inside that loop, I want to set the day number. The day number is going to be equal to, I want to find, basically what I want to do is I want to determine what day is this? What day is this? A Monday? I'm going to set it to a 1. Is it a Tuesday? Set it to a 2. So once I determine the day number, then what I want to do is I want to look for that inside the admin. I want to look it up here. If there's a check, if it's blank, then I know to edit. So if I know that Monday's 1 and Tuesday's 2 and so on and so forth, all I need to do is determine the day number. We can use the weekday function inside VBA as well. So how are we going to do that? So the day number is going to be equal to the application worksheet function. We're going to use weekday. That was auto hotkey that automated that. Weekday function, okay? So what's the first one? It's going to be cells. We're looking for that date. Where is that date located? We're going to loop through the columns, of course, but we know that it's located on row 2. So the first one's going to be 66, and then row 2. It's always going to be row 2. So that date is going to be in, so we look for dot cells, row 2, and what's the column? The column is going to use the schedule column because we're looping through that. Dot value. So that value, we want the weekday of that. And remember, we're using 2, the argument 2. That's where Mondays end up being 1. So 2. So now that we have that day number inside a variable, 1 through 7, depending upon the day of the week, where that is, then what I want to do is I want to look up. So again, if it's Monday, where am I going to find Monday inside the admin screen? Well, I'm going to look up. I know it's in AY. and I know it's at least in 4, right? So if I know Monday is 4, how do I get there? It's going to be AY plus 3 plus the day. That'll give us Monday, right? So if I do that, AY plus 3 plus the day number. So that's how we can do it. If admin.range AY and 3 plus the day number dot value equals empty, then we know we need to hide that. Then hide that column, and hide the one below it. So how are we going to do that? So all we need to do is just simply hide it. So we're going to do this. Then range, right? We'll do dot range because we're on the schedule. Dot range here. Actually, what is that range? That range is going to be located here. It's going to be dot cells. Dot range. What's the row? We know we can use row 1. It doesn't matter because we're hiding the column. The schedule column, we know it's 66, but we need, in this case, I need to start out to the column to the left. So if we know that this is 66, I also want to hide the time column, right? So I want to hide 66, column 66, and I want to hide 65. So it's a range from 65 to 66. So the row doesn't matter. So that's just what we're going to do. We're going to set that range using both those columns. The first column is schedule column minus 1, and then not value. Okay, not value. So that's the first part of the range. What's the second part of the range? It's going to be basically just this, except we are going to, actually we don't need the dot before range because we're using the range. We got the cells, we got the sheet set here, cells. This time it's schedule column 66 in this case. So this entire column dot hidden equals true. We're hiding it. Else we're showing it. So else in this case, all we need to do is copy this here, paste it down here, and then in this case, false, right? Hidden equals false. So we're either showing or hiding based on whether there's a check mark or not. And that's all we need to do. So end if and next. So that's it. So that's all we need to do. And when do I want to run this macro? Let's run the macro, make sure there's no issues there. So when do I want to run this? I want to run this macro when the user makes any change to those days, but only if the week view is selected. What do I mean by that? I only want to run this macro here. Let's make sure it works. Okay, so we've selected all the days. Let's go back into the admin. Okay, let's unselect Sunday and Saturday. We want to make sure that so that's the macro I want to run it on. When we're running these days, I want automatically those to be hidden automatically, but only if. So I want Saturday and Sunday, wherever they end up in the week, I want them to be hidden. So how are we going to do that? So that's easy. All we need to do is just simply run the macro on the change event of that. But I only want to make sure that when this view is week, right? When there's no need to run it, when this will become week or day based on the macro. So I'm going to write that and then we're going to copy that. So again, let's just go back into the day view here, scheduled. So on the day view, we want to make sure we're going to set B3 schedule dot range B3 dot value equals day. Okay, so we're going to set that to week. We're going to copy this and we're going to use it very, very similar inside the week. So it's going to be set to day on day view and set to week. So let's just assume that we have it on week view for now. Now we're going to go into the admin. When I select or unselect these, I want those to be hidden. So I want to run that macro on any change event between AY4 and AY10. So we can write that inside the admin right here. So admin, and it's going to be focused on the worksheet change event here. So it's based on the admin. Okay, so let's write that up right now. So it's going to be based on a change of AY4 to AY10. So we're going to set that up AY4 through AY10 is nothing, and schedule dot range B3 dot value equals week, and only then do we want to run. Then we're going to run that macro. That's the macro we want to schedule week view days, schedule days. So perfect. There we go. So let's go ahead and save our work we've done. So any change on AY4 to AY10, that's going to happen. So let's go ahead and select that and then unselect that. Now we'll go take a look inside our schedule, and then we're going to check to make sure that Saturday and Sunday are hidden. Perfect. Okay, that's just what I want. Notice that they've been hidden automatically. And if just for fun, if we want to do Wednesday, we want to undo Wednesday and go back into the schedule here. Got a menu up here we can use, and now it goes Tuesday through Thursday. Perfect. Okay, for our purposes though, we want to make sure to see them all today. So for now, okay, we'll just show them all. Okay, good. So that's working. So we have that, and only when it's going to happen. And also what we're going to do is when we click the schedule, we're also going to run this macro automatically when we refresh the schedule. So if we copy this here, we also want to do it. So if we copy this, let's go ahead and inside the macro. So this particular macro that we just wrote right here, this is the one that I want to copy here. In the schedule, let's go week view. This one here. So this one, I want to run this automatically based every time they click on the week view. And I also want to run this refresh. So before we refresh the schedule, I want to run this. So how are we going to do that? Inside the schedule miscellaneous, when we're clicking week view, before we run refresh, I want to paste that in. So this is going to show, although it's self-descript, show or hide days based on company work days. And also then we're going to run the macro, run macro to refresh scheduled lessons. All right, very good. So now all we need to do is create this macro that we have, and that's going to do that. So that's going to be very, very similar to our day view schedule. So how are we going to do that? Month view, we're not going to cover yet. Okay, so let's go into the day view, and then all I'm going to do is just simply going to scroll down here, and we're going to copy that macro, this one right here, and then we're going to update it accordingly because there's some similarities. It's actually less and it's actually easier. So I'm just going to copy that all the way to reset. I'm going to go into the week view, and I'm just going to paste it right in here. Now we'll make some updates and some removals. So we do need a schedule column. Let's go start it up at the top and see where it differentiates so we don't miss anything. All right, very good. All right, well, we do want to clear out the lesson fields. That's very, very important. But before we do that, I want to move something up here. I want to make sure that before we do this, we're going to set something that I probably should have done. I want to set any changes. Notice that when we make any changes on the schedule, I think it's B2, we're going to set that to true. And I want to make sure that that exists, be true, before we clearing out. Remember, any changes that we make here, it's going to trigger a lesson change, but not if B2 is true. Changes such as clearing, I want to make sure. So I want to do set. Before I do that, I want to do that. And I really should do that also for the day view as well, because they're both consistent. And then dot B2, and we'll do dot value equals true. Set change to true. Now we do that already, but I do it down here, and so I want to make sure that it gets set up before to make sure that any changes we make, and then that way we do at the end of the macro, we're going to set them back to false here, which is perfect. Okay, so and then let's go ahead and just going to put that also inside the day view too while I'm thinking about it, so that we don't forget, because that's kind of important. It does help make things a little bit faster and make sure, although stop calculations does turn off application enabling events, which also helps. Okay, so back here inside the week view, we're going to go through it. So we want to clear out all the lesson fields. That's going to remain consistent. Nothing's going to change there, right? The lesson fields are going to be consistent regardless of that. So nothing's going to change. We're going to clear out all the lesson fields. Nothing's going to change there with that as well. The lesson database, again, we need to, basically it's going to be based on two figures. So I want to make sure that both this, I want to make sure that this is the first day of the week. And also I want to make sure that this is the last day of the week. So from day to day is going to take effect right now, but we'll do that. For example, when I click this week, I'm going to make sure that this is the first day and this. So that's going to be based on the macro. So we can just set, for now, we'll just set a specific date, and then we'll go ahead and update that. So we'll also set it to last, but we'll use VBA to set that based on whatever thing, if they do previous or next week or anything like that. So we'll set that up just manually for now before we run the macro, and then once we update the previous, this week, and the calendar, and then we'll get those working just fine. Okay, so once we have that, we know that we have the from and to. So that's all. Remember, these 2 days are automatically going to set our criteria inside our lesson database here, just like it did for the day view. They're automatically set here, right here. So remember, B4, B5, that criteria is set, and that's so nice because we have that automatically on the day view, and that's why now once we have a good consistency, creating the week view or the month view, it's going to follow all these same criteria. Very easy, we can use these. We don't need to create new ones because we've developed it with consistency. Okay, so back into the scheduling screen, and then we'll go back also into the macro and keep running through it. So we want to make sure that we have that consistency. So we're going to run our advanced filter. Nothing will change with that. We're going to, the view by, now the view by, again, we want to make sure there's going to be no view by in this case because the view by is going to be only by date. So we're not going to use the view by. In fact, what we want to do here inside the filters here, this view by is going to be hidden. It's only if it's day view. In other words, view by, remember in the day view, we had teachers up here, or we had rooms up here, or we had class types up here. But here, it's only going to be the date. So day view is going to be disabled. So what we can do that is set some conditional formatting. So conditional formatting here, we're going to add a new rule here. And then based on this, so using a formula, if this is not day view, so let's use a formula here. this one here. So if this is not equal day view, day, then what I want to do is basically hide this so we can use it with a format. So all we need to do is format. I'll bring that over so you can see it. I'll give it a font color the same as the background, and then I'm going to give it the fill the same as the background. Okay, so now it's going to basically hide all that when it's not day view. As soon as this switches to day view, it's going to show up. It's only available on day view. Okay, so that's the way I want it. Okay, we can also hide some borders around there, so why don't we do that? So let's manage those rules, and then we'll also hide the bottom border. So let's put the bottom border out of there, and then that'll hide most of them except the center one, which is fine. Okay, good. I like that. We don't even need that border there. We can remove that so it's a nice clean there. That's fine. Okay, now it's completely hidden and we don't see it there, so we only see it on day view like that, which is what I like. I only want the users to know that it exists on day view. Back in week view, so we have that, so we're going to set the dates. We won't be having any type of a view by, so we can remove those lines from the week view because we won't need that at all. So if view by, we don't need that. The schedule column, we're going to set that. Okay, well, we also want to set B3 to week. It's now a week, so we want to make sure that that's going to have to be week. And now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're going to be checking for those lesson shapes. We've already cleared all the lesson shapes. Okay, inside the day view, we use the view by to set the column headers, but we don't need that here, so we can clear that out. For schedule column, we also placed those column headers or cleared those column headers. We don't need that. We have our date set in that, so we don't need to resetting. We will be using our schedule column, but it'll be in a different manner because we'll be setting the dates by the. If view by is teacher, we don't need that, right? Because we don't have the view by. So also what we don't want to do is we don't need to set the limit. We don't need to have any kind of a limit on the schedule. We don't need to worry about that. We also don't need to loop through the teachers to set the teacher headers because they're just by dates. So we can get rid of all of that. Also the view by room, we're not going to be using that as well. So we can get rid of all the view by room. It's going to be much simpler. So, and of course class type, we don't need any of that, so we can get rid of that. Okay, so now we've got it cleared out mostly. We don't need any of that, so we can continue on. So set the schedule lesson load to true. Now we can do it. So we've got that. So here we've set it up here, but I kind of wanted this. We've already set B2. So let's clear that out, right? We've already said it. We can probably just change this up here, B2 and D2. I think I like it up there better. That's going to make it more, it'll make it a little bit faster, so I like it there better. Okay, continuing on. Now we're ready to run our result. Now these are the results that we're going to go. We're going to run a loop through the results. This is our lesson database. Here's our results here. We're going to run that loop from 3 to the last one. We're going to loop, but I need to get that date. I need to know what column that date is on. Where's that date going to be located? It's located right here in lesson date here. So this is the date. This is going to tell us what column it's in. So we need to find that column. So how are we going to do that? We're going to have trouble using find because these are formulas, and the find function doesn't work in formulas. So what we can do is we can use an array. An array can help us locate that. So let's write in some specific code that's going to help us with that. All right, so basically we need to find that date, but we're going to use an array to find it, not the find. So since we're going to use an array, we need to dimension a few more things. So why don't we do this down here? So we're going to do this. So obviously the lesson date is a date. So let's just put that here, the lesson date as a date. We're going to need that. Also, beyond that, I also want some variance for our array. So we're going to dimension the day date as a variant. And also I want to know the week dates as an array, because all those week dates as a variant, that as well. Also, I would like to know a date and some long. So we want to go through the columns. I want to count through the columns, dimension the column count as long, and also the day number as long. We may need that as well. Day number as long. Okay, so now that we have that, so we're gonna continue down in our macro. Now we don't need this. So we don't need the view by, so we can get rid of that inside. Remember, we're in here inside the week view. I want to remove it. We can raise this up a little bit and take a look at it. We don't need the view, determine the column. We do need to determine the column, certainly, but it's not going to be based by teacher, room, or class type. So we're going to use that variable. We can get rid of this select case, okay? Also, hiding unused columns. We've already done that, hiding those unused columns through another macro based on the date. So we can get rid of that. Now we have all the variables based. So we want to add one more. Of course, we need lesson date. So where's that lesson date? Lesson start date. Let's take a look at that. We have the start and CD. It's going to be those results that we're coming from. So in the lesson database, Our CD is our start time. Our date is in CB. So we need to put that into a variable. We didn't need that before because they were all on the same day. So the lesson date is going to be equal to dot range, and we can just copy this over and we just simply put in what we need to put in there. Just change the column and then change the comment. Lesson date. Okay, so that's the date of the lesson there. And again, that is basically focused on column CB is where we're going to be putting that. So we just update that. Once we have the lesson date, we need to determine what column that date is on. We need to know what column because we'll just need to search in that column and look through that. So how are we going to do that? Well, all we're going to do is loop through an array. And what's that array is going to be based on? An range in that. So our range is going to come all the way from BN2 all the way through, again, BZ to BZ. So I'm going to look through all that and look for that date using an array just to see if we can find that. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Something brand new. Let's take a look inside here. So after the lesson date, then what we want to do is we want to determine that we're looking for schedule column. That's the variable that we need to find. We know the row. Everything else is the same down here, but we need to find that. So how do we do that? Do a loop for each. Let's put a notes in here. Locate lesson column, right? That's what we want to find out. The date, basically the date, what column we're going to put in. So for each date in, and well, we need to define what we're going to be doing. So let's do that. Week dates array. What is that array is going to be equal to? Equal to, again, schedule here, because we're going to need to put in that range. We're going to put in that range. What's that is? BN2, that same range all the way through BZ2. BZ2. That's the range that we're going to be looking for. So now once we have that for each date in, again, that range here, week dates array, and then close our loop, next day date. Okay, so once we have the loop, we can loop. So we're going to set the column count. I want to know the column count. As we're looping through the columns, we need to keep track of them so we know which column equals column count plus 1. So we're just going to increment those by 1. So we're adding them. And so if, here we go, the date equals the lesson date, then all we need to do is say one more thing. The schedule column, we just need the schedule column is equal to the column count plus what? Plus 65. Why 65? 65. Because our first option, our first one is going to be column count. There we go. Column count. Okay, it's 65. Why? Because our first one starts on 66. So if it's number 1, right, if the date's found in the first one BN, this is going to be, our column count's going to be 1. So how do I get column 66? I simply add 65 to it, and that's going to get it. So that's going to get it. So as we increment, as we go through all of these, it's going to basically look through all the columns. Sure, we could skip 2 if we wanted to time. We could do that, but it's fast anyways. But it's just going to look for that date. If it's found, it's going to set it. So we can use this simple match using this specific, and then all we need to do, we're done here. So once it's found, then exit for, and then end if. So that's all we have to do. Very, very simple. And then all we need to do is just set the column count to 0 here. Column count equals 0. Reset to 0. That might be helpful. Okay, so once we've got that, so what that's going to do is every time it loops here, we want to reset the column count, because for every single row, we need to reset it. Why is that? Because it's going to count them again and again and again. It's very fast. So as it goes through the first one, it looks for it. It goes through all the counts. Then it goes, the column count goes back to 0. It looks for this one and then this one, although they're all on the same date in this case. But it gives you an idea. Okay, so now we go back into the schedule. So we've looped through that and we've allowed it to find that specific date. So once it's found here, if it's going to set it, it's going to set the column count, it's going to set that schedule column. We need that variable. We have the lesson date, we have the schedule column, we have the schedule row. Those are very important. As long as we have those, we are ready to move on. But what if it's not found? If it's not found, we need to skip that, right? There's a chance it's not found. Why would that happen? It could happen if the column's hidden or something. If the schedule column equals 0, then go to next lesson. I think we have one down here. We want to skip all the way. That we have skip icon, but we'll just do, let's do next lesson here also. Next lesson. Okay, so it's going to skip all the way down in case it's not found. Next lesson. So there we go. So now we have it completely skipped right here if it's gone. Okay, so that's it. So let's just locate the lesson column. We've done it through this. We've located it and we've put it in here. If it's not, we're skipping everything. We've determined the schedule row, the duration row. Nothing's going to change on that. Everything's simple and everything's based on the same. We're going to get all the information. We're going to place it there. The only thing is we got to set the column down. Now we got to set the column. We know the column is going to be here. It's already set up here. It's already set up. Because it's in variables, the same with the day view. Before we had a dynamic column based on teachers or based on room or based on the type. Now it's based on date, but it's still the variable. It's still setting it. So we don't have to change much about this. We don't have to change the expander button. We don't have to change the lesson icon. We don't have to change much. So we're pretty much done with this macro. Very cool. All right, we've probably got a few issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to save our work, and then we're just going to run this macro, see if there's anything out of whack here. Everything looks good. So let's take a look. All right, so let's take a look in the week view and see how this macro came out. Now we select on a lesson. We got it showing up here. Perfect. Okay. Well, that looks pretty good. We'll check it. We've probably got a few issues. Now we need to make a change. If we're dragging and dropping, this is going to cause an error. It's not going to let us do it because we have to set it up for that. So that's all. We just need to allow that. And so, all right, so let's get that done and let's be able to add the drag and drop functionality into this. Well, that's going to be in the selection change macro. So let's go into that and make a few adjustments based on either the day view or the week view. So here's a macro. It's located in our scheduling miscellaneous module. And that specific macro here is called check for lesson change, right? So we're checking for change. Basically, to review is we're checking on a different change of the position. When we select a specific shape, that position is saved. That top position, that left position is saved here. The left position is here. The top position is here and the height is here. So it's saved. So any change on B14, B15, or B16 based difference from the actual, we know it's changed. So when I drag this, when I move it up or down, I know that there's been a change. So we need to reflect, and also we need to know based on the existing column. Now, if you keep in mind the day view, of course, has column O. We know it's going to be somewhere between column O and I guess B, A, or whatever it was, right? So now we're going to be on the week view. So now we need to check for a change between BM or BN and then BZ on the columns, and then of course the height and the top row and the bottom row would be the same. So let's make those changes, and we're going to check for those updates. So inside this particular macro, check for lesson changes, we're going to check if the lesson shape is different than what's in B14, the left position is different than what's in B14, or of course the top position is different than B15, or the lesson height is different than B16. Remember, when we select those, we're putting that height in B16. So any change in that, as we run our loop, we're running that loop, we're looking for any changes, and we keep running it and running it and running it. You know, as long as we have do events, the user is allowed to do other things. So once we realize that a change has been made, then we need to check to see what type of a change. So the first thing is this particular type of change here, right? This one here is based on the day view, right? So let's put that in parentheses, day view. Why is that? Well, because in this particular change, we're checking for if the lesson shape left is O1. Remember, O, column O is for day view, or is greater than O, the top position, or BC1, this was the column we were looking for, BC1, the left position is greater, then we need it is too far off the schedule. So this is all based on the day view. So I need to put some reference in there. So if, in this case, dot range B3, which is keeps our track, equals day, right? So this is only for the day view, and I'm going to do and if here. So then, obviously we need the then and if, right? So we're going to focus just on the day view and if. So this is for day view. So, but we also have to write something else for week view. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to drop this down here and I'm going to put it down here. So if the drag and drop, this is going to be for week view, and we just have to make a view updates, right? I need to know, first of all, if B3 is equal to week. And of course, we're going to do the same thing when we do month view as well. We'll be adding to that when we get to the month. So now if the left position is less than, not going to be O1, so what are we looking at? We're looking at specifically for, in this case, BN, right? BN is what we want to know to make sure if it's BN. So BN, we need to check. If it's less than BN, BN1, or it's greater than, right? We don't want to drag it off. We're just checking to see if we're dragging it off the schedule. So in the week view, the last column is BZ. If we remember, the last potential one's BZ, right? So if it's beyond BZ, we know they've dragged it too far to the right. So those are the parameters that we're checking for. Or In this case, the left position or the right position here, this is what we want. I want to know the left position is greater than column BZ. We know it's too far to the right. The top position would be the same, 03. So that's fine, no problem. Or the left. So we really want to just check the left position and make sure it's not less than BN, column BN. We want to make sure the right position is not greater. If it is, we need to let them know that please make sure to drag and drop the lesson on the existing schedule. Obviously, we're not going to run the day view refresh, but in this case, it's going to be the week view refresh. So week view is what we want to refer. And that way, when they drag it too far off, it's simply going to refresh it and everything's going to return back to normal. Okay, so we've covered both instances, whether it's a day or week view, but now we need to focus on the date. Remember, we said if we move it over, it's going to be a date. And I also wanted to make an update here. Keep this in mind, this was something that was left off, but it should not be left off. When we make a column change, this is only for day view. We need to update a few things here. So when we're doing, I want to put two other additions. If there's a change to the column, we want to make sure that the schedule column is not empty. But also I want to know if it's a left change. We're looking for left change here. Here we're looking for a column change. So the left position would be different. So what I want to do is I want to copy this one right here. B14 contains our left position. So if there's a difference, I want to know. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to drop it down here. We're looking for this. If there's a difference in the left, and we want to make sure that header value is not empty, and one other thing. And I want to make sure B3, because this is only for day view. Only day view are we going to be focusing on the teacher or the room. So, and what is it? Dot range B3 dot value equals day. Okay, then we're going to focus on this. So now we can differentiate. And I want to make one critical update to here. We're changing the teacher name in the database. When there's a teacher name change, we're changing F, which is correct. But we also need the teacher ID. Very, very important. Can't leave that off, Randy. Okay, so notice that we're changing the teacher name, but I also need to put the teacher ID in here. That's why there's sometimes it's different. We gotta make sure the teacher ID. Now, the good thing is when we select a specific schedule, when we select any specific appointment, that teacher ID is going to automatically be saved right here. So it's automatically based on the match, based on the teacher full name located here in L4. So whatever teacher is located, we're going to put that. So all I need to do is take whatever's in B12 and place it directly inside this column G and whatever row. So all I need to do is just make that update. And that way make sure that the teacher name and the teacher ID are always there. So all I'm going to do is simply copy this here. I'm going to change it to column G, and then we're going to say equals, in this case B12, equals dot range B12, and that's going to be the teacher ID. Teacher ID, that's important. So when we make that change on day view, only on day view here, we're going to update the teacher ID and the teacher name. Both we need are very important. And then of course L4 is going to take that new teacher name, is going to put that in there. Okay, good. So I wanted to make sure we update that. But now let's go ahead and focus on if we're actually making a change on the week view. This is only for day view, all this. So what I want to do is I want to make a change for day view. What if it's a week view? Let's go ahead and make that update. Well, we can just copy this up here and then make the updates here. So I'm going to copy this here, and this is going to be on week view. Let's put some comments in here. On week view column change. We've already checked to make sure it doesn't flow off the schedule, so we got that there. Okay, so if the left position is different than B4, we want to make sure that the header column is not empty, just in case. And we want to make sure B3 equals week. In this case, week, then what are we going to do? So we'll just close that end if, and all we need to do is just take that specific lesson date and we need to put it inside a variable. And I believe we need to actually put it inside a variable. So let's go ahead and add that variable inside here. Right here's where I want to do. I'm going to call this lesson date as date. I want to mention that variable, and now we can go down here and then we can continue on. So what is the lesson date? The lesson date is going to be equal to whatever is in this header value, dot cells T. And we've already defined the schedule column, so all we need to do in row 2 in the schedule column, that's going to equal the lesson date. And where do we want to make that update? I want to make that update inside the database. We've already know exactly what the lesson database row is. Remember, we've defined that lesson database row all the way up right here in B11. So since we've already defined that row, we can just add it in. And all I need to do, again, is just copy this and then make the updates accordingly. So I'm just going to copy this. And then what we'll do is we'll paste it down here. And I'm going to paste, but what column are we putting that date? We need to make sure we've got the right column. That's going to be located in column B. That's our lesson date. That's what we're updating. So inside column B is where I'm going to place that. And then we're just going to call this lesson date. And that's the new lesson date. Okay, that's it. That's so simple there. It's all we have to do because that schedule is going to automatically refresh when we get down here. It's going to automatically update accordingly. All right, let's take a look and see how that's going to work. Going back into the scheduling screen here, and now we'll just slide on over, and then we'll go ahead and move an appointment. We got 2 appointments here, so we can move this to a different date, and we'll see how that looks. Okay, nice. Let's see, May 18th. So when I select on it, that new date is May 18th. If I want to drag it over to May 19th, all I do is select it and drag it over to a new time and a new date. Okay, I like that. Now it's May 19th. We've got a brand new time, 11:45. So that's working really good. Let's double check the day view. We want to make sure that we didn't upset anything on that. So when I select the day view here, notice we've got May 19th, we've got room 1, and we've got John Fred. And I'm going to move that one over to Lisa and at 10:45 to make sure we're set. Okay, so now it's on Lisa Smith. Now it's on 10:45. That's working perfect. We've got drag and drop day view, and we got now drag and drop week view. Very, very cool. Let's double check some of the other things. I want to move just the time here and make sure that time updates because we've got duplicate here. We don't need all those schedules. So it's a very easy drag and drop working very good. I think this particular, notice this little issue, that little issue can be completed with application screen updating true. So because as soon as we go back and down, notice it's updated. So when you see an issue like that, application screen updating true, we'll set that a little bit later, but that's just a little issue. All you need to do is just add that there because I did notice that. So that will automatically refresh the screen, which is something you need to do. Notice it doesn't refresh. Okay, easy problem. We'll take care of that a little bit later on. It's just simple. It's not a data issue. It's just a screen updating issue. All right, so we've got week view, but let's put these specific buttons in action right now. Now there's macros assigned, but they're the incorrect. Those are for day view macros. So we need to update these and we need to create macros for the week view. So basically when I go to previous week, all I want to do is take this date here, whatever's date here, and I want to do 7 less, and I want to place it directly in here. I'm going to do the same thing for here, 7 less, and then we're just going to refresh the schedule. So let's write a macro that's going to do that right now. This week we're going to put in a specific date. We're going to want a pop-up calendar on here, and then next week. So just a few more macros to write before I let you go this week. Okay, so into the week view module schedule, we're going to go here, schedule week view, and up at the top here we have just a single macro up at the top for this specific show and hide day. So I'm going to add some modules here. We're going to first want some macros here. First one I'm going to call is sub schedule, and then we'll do this week. And then I want another add. I want to do previous week and I want to do next week. So we can just copy this and then we can just add, update it. We don't want 2 macros with the same name. We're going to call this previous week and then the next one next week. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of space between those, and then we want another one called next week. These are going to be relatively simple macros to write. So how are we going to do that? Well, first with schedule, we're going to focus on that scheduling screen. And then I want to in this case, this week, of course, we want to put B4 as the current date. So B4 is that start dot range. B4 dot value equals the date. Okay, that's the current date. Set current date. Once we have that, I'm going to run calculate, right? I want to calculate. What do I want to calculate? Well, I want to just make sure. I always like to use calculate just to make sure, even though it should calculate unless calculations are turned off. What I want to do is I want to run this formula because this formula is going to always set that first day of the week, whatever day of the week it is and whatever specific. It's always going to set that based on the first day of the week. So then what I want to do is I want to take this specific date and I want to put it back into B4 here, okay? Because so once I place it back in here, then I can also set B5, which is going to be 6 days later, 6 plus 6 days on that, or 7 days later. So let's do that right now. Let's add that into the code. So once I do calculate, I'm simply going to take B4 again. In this case, B4 is going to equal whatever is in BN2. So B4 equals dot range BN2. That's that first date, BN2. Okay, first day of week, and it's been calculated. Now all we need to do is update B5. B5, of course, is going to be right after that. It's going to be the end of the week. So it's simply going to be, or we can just simply add in whatever is in BZ2. That's easy too as well. Dot range BZ2. BZ2, that's the last day of the week. And automatically dot value, last day of week. Okay, so now that we have those, all we need to do is simply run the macro that's going to refresh our schedule. Schedule, week, view, and then refresh. Okay, good. So that's it. So why does that work? Why do only we need to replace these? Because remember correctly, in our advanced filter, we've set it up for regardless of the view in our lesson database, our advanced filters here, criteria here, equals whatever's in B4, equals whatever's in B5. So all we need to do is update B4 and B5, run that macro, and then our results of that week are all going to be placed right here. Relatively simple. So that's all we have to do inside that. All right, so now once we have that, we can just simply change it. Now we can update our next week. So we've got this week and now previous and next week. So this week it's going to be relatively simple. So let's go ahead and clear that out. Let's update that so it looks nice. And then all I need to do is just copy this and we're going to paste it in previous week. And previous week is going to be slightly similar. So what do we want to do? So the first thing what I want to do is in this case, I want to make sure that we are adding this specifically from B4. So I'm just going to subtract out the value. So in this case, B4 is equal to whatever is in B4 minus 7, just subtracting 7. So B4 minus 7. So in this case, set the previous week. Okay, good. Okay, and then everything else is the same. B4, once it's calculated, once we've set that initial date, we can add BN and BZ2, both are calculated based on those formulas. So all we need to do is bring those into B4 and B5. We can do exactly the same with the next week, except we're going to be adding 7 and not subtracting. So we just need to copy that and change that to plus 7, and we'll just call this set next week. There we go. Simple as that. Now all we need to do is assign those macros to the buttons. And then of course we want to update the calendar button. That's going to be a little bit different. So let's go into that and assign those buttons. So we're going to take this one, the macro that I'm going to assign to this one is going to be that previous. So we're going to go right click there, assign those macros. It's going to be based on the schedule. And if we look down here under schedule here, we see that we have previous week and next week. So this one's going to be previous week. That's the one I want to assign to this button. Clicking OK. We have this week. I'm going to, again, assign the macro, type in schedule, scroll down, and look for this week. And then right click here. And then, of course, this is going to be the next week. So, again, schedule, and then looking for the next week. That's the one I want here. All right, so once those three are designed, we can save our work and double check to see if there's any issues. We're currently on this one. We're going to be May 17th, so we're going to go directly to May 10th. It's going to update that schedule. Go previous one more, May 3rd. Good, I like that. Going next, and then next back to there. And then this week, we're going to set to this week. All right, it's currently, let's go to the next week. And now this week, it's headed back to May 17th. Perfect, things are looking good. All right, last thing before I let you go is why don't we add a pop-up calendar here to this, and then so we can select on any specific week using this little pop-up calendar. Cool. Well, I've run this shape-based pop-up calendar, which we're going to use, and I'd like to get that added here and then placed here. So how are we going to do that? Well, I've got the calendar. Obviously, I'm not going to be recreating this calendar in this, but I've got it already here, and I'm just going to open up that sample file, and then I'm just going to drag it up here. So we have that here. So why don't I'm going to show you what this calendar looks like, and then I'm just going to bring it inside here. And then we're going to use the macros, which is going to update the link. So this is the calendar that I want. So I'm just simply going to copy this here. And then I'm going to paste that directly inside ours. So that's a one part of it, but we need the code that's going to be assigned to this, obviously. So where is that code? So inside the developer, it's a good amount of code. You can take a look at it, and it's called the pop-up calendar. This is the module. So it's a lot. We're showing the calendar. We're hiding it. I'm not going to go into all the it's a massive macro, but it just deals with it. So again, all I need to do is just drag this up into this, and then we just need to run some macro that's going to update the links on that. So again, I'm going to drag it right in here, and also there's going to be a sheet that gets created. So let's take a look at that and create that automatically. All right, so the first thing we want to do is actually run a macro inside that, and that's going to create that calendar pop-up sheet. So let's take a look inside the code here. And we've already brought over our specific pop-up calendar module here. So this is the one I'm looking for. So what I want to do is I want to create a sheet, just simply run a macro that we've already created. And it's basically called create calendar sheet. That's going to create a unique sheet. It's going to be hidden automatically, and we're going to unhide it. So I'm just going to run this specific macro. It's going to run for a moment. It's going to create the sheet, and it's going to create a calendar. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and make that update. Okay, so it's now been created, but you can't see it here. It's hidden. So we're going to unclick. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Right click, unhide. Unhide what? Unhide actually two sheets now that I've hidden the wrong one. So I'm going to do unhide again, and then unhide. We don't need student database hidden. Okay, so what that's going to do is unhide this. I'm going to go all the way to the end, and we'll take a look brand new. What we see is a calendar pop-up. Okay, so but we have to update some. So I've got a specific thing. Now we don't want this calendar here. We don't need this just yet, but I'll create a backup. So I'm going to delete that one for now. The one we copied over inside the scheduling screen is the one we want. So I'm going to pull this scheduling screen, and right now it's not updated, but we're just going to copy it. This is what we want. And I'm going to bring this back in as a backup copy into our calendar pop-up. I'm going to place it right here. Okay, good. So now that we've got it here, I'm just going to update the value. I'm just going to put a 1 here just so we can see to make sure everything's right. So that's going to set us a month number. That looks good. That's exactly what I want. We want to make sure that the links are correct and we have everything linked properly. So we want to make sure that we're not linked to any specific other workbook in the formulas, and the same thing in the scheduling. So we're going to use this if the calendar gets deleted. All we need to do is bring this one over inside our whatever screen we're on. In this case, it's the scheduling screen, but it could be for any screen. Okay, so back inside the scheduling, we now see that everything's been updated here. Our specific links to the individual cell, we want to make sure it's linked to the pop-up calendar, not another worksheet, right? We're good to go on that. I'm going to save our work, and what we're going to do is we're going to close that sample so that we don't get confused. This is the sample file. Okay, so you can do that from any file, any type of file. You can follow the same procedure. All we're going to be doing, again, first copying over the calendar, then we're going to run the macro that's going to actually, remember, this is the macro owner on create calendar. That's going to create that calendar sheet. It's going to create all the formulas. Then on that specific sheet, we are going to delete the specific, remember, delete that calendar that we created, delete the one that was there, and replace the one that we copied over from the other workbook and place it there. This is our backup, and just putting a 1 in A3, that's going to set the month number. All we're doing is we're indexing the calendar months based on A3, so we're just indexing, and I'm going to look at it. Okay, so now we have this. So if we place a date into A1, it's going to automatically update that. So everything's there. You can look at that module. We're not going to go into too much detail, but what we want to do now is I want to display that specific calendar, and I want to display it in a specific position, right about something like here, when a user clicks on this specific button here. So let's write that macro now and have that calendar appear. So we're going to go back into our scheduling, and this is focused on the week view. So schedule week view. Up here, right after this macro, right after the next one, we're going to write a brand new macro. We're going to call it sub schedule week view show calendar. So that's what I want to show. So again, I want to make sure that we are going to set whatever's in A7 to be B4, just in case I want to set the current date equals B4. What is that going to do? It's going to set a specific cell for that. Let me look. I'm just going to show you a little bit. So I want to know it's already going to be based on the specific sheet that we're on, already schedule sheet. So what I want to do is I want to set inside A7. Let's go ahead and look at B4. B4. That's going to tell us what cell is going to make the change right here. B4. Put that in here. So it's going to do that. And once we know that it's going to look to B4, it's going to look, that's the way when we update that. So now you see it's going to be on the 3rd. So all we're going to do is take that and put it in B4 inside A7. So let's put that inside the macro. That's going to set that initial date. So basically whatever is in B4, we want it to show up, whatever's there, so that we can set that initial date, whatever is located here in B4 here. Right here, May 17th in this case. So we're going to put that there. All right, so let's do that inside the macro now and write that up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is set cal pop up. That's the sheet name. But let's make sure we set that up properly because I want to set that sheet up. We haven't done it yet. I want to set that code name for that sheet here. It's sheet 2 right now, but I want to make sure it's cal pop up. That's what I want. So now the IntelliSense will work properly. So now when we go back inside that, and now I put dot, it's going to show up. That's what I want. Range, what is that range? In this case, A7 dot value equals going to set that B4. That's just the initial setting. So we'll set initial calendar date. And you'll see that why that's important very, very soon. Okay, so the next thing I want to focus on with that specific shape. So with schedule dot shapes calendar. Then what we want to do, what do I want to do? I want to focus on. So we got the end width. So now I want to set the top, the left position. So left position is going to be equal to, well, we need to set something. Schedule dot shapes. We need to set it based on a specific, another shape, based on another shape, because it's not based on a cell. But what should we base it on? We don't have anything. Well, I want to base it on, why don't we zoom in and get a specific name for this? I want to base it on either this icon or this button. Either one would work, but I want to set a specific name. So why don't we call this set week button? We'll just look week, let's see, button. So once we have this specific button name, we can then place this calendar based on the position of this set week button here. So now that we have a name, so I'm just going to copy that. We'll zoom out a little bit. And now what we can do is go back into the code and then set that left position based on that brand new button, brand new name that we call it. So shape set week button, the left position of that, but not the exact same left, maybe minus 30 or something like that. Also, I want to set the top position also based on this specific button, but it's going to be the top position of that, but not exactly the top position. It's going to be plus the height of that. So I want it below that button. So plus the height of that specific one, dot height there. Okay. So that's going to place the top position of it. And also I want to make it visible. Plus, not the equals here. We don't need that. Okay. Plus, I want to set, of course, the height of that. Excuse me, dot visible. I want to make sure it's dot visible, right? Equals ms true. And also, I want to set, we have other shapes in here. What I don't want to happen is I don't want this calendar to appear under this shape, right? I wouldn't want this to look like that, right? So I want to make sure that this calendar is appear on top. We can use Z order for that. So we can set that Z order inside the code. So dot Z order is going to be equal to, in this case, not equal, we don't need equal, bring to front, right? Z order is bring to front, no equal. All right, so that's it. So all we need to do is set the top, set the left position, and we're going to make sure it's visible, and then set the Z order. And again, I'm going to add application screen updating to true equals true, just to make sure that everything is automatically. That's going to help us. Okay, good. Let's take a look at that. What I'll do is I'll save our work, and then along the icon and that back button, I'm going to assign this marker to both of those. So let's zoom in again, take a look at this. I wanted to use both of them in this case. So here, and then also zoom in. I want to make sure it's on the back one too. This one here, both of those get that macro assigned. So we're going to assign that macro, paste in that macro, and click OK. All right, that's great. Now I have the calendar. It's going to appear up here. It's going to appear automatically, which I like, and it's got the nice position, which is good. So we've got that, but I want that. When I select anything else, I want to make sure that that calendar is hidden. So how do we do that? When I select anything else, I want that calendar to go away. Well, we can check for it in the selection change. When I select something else, I want that calendar hidden automatically. Well, that's going to be based in the worksheet change. So we go into the schedule, and we're going to focus on the selection change. When we make a selection change, we want something to happen. So what do we want to happen? Again, if, first thing I want to, we have shapes, calendar. If it's visible, dot visible equals true, then we're going to hide it. Then shapes dot calendar dot visible equals and so false. So that's going to hide it no matter what they select. It's going to hide it. Then if they select a specific cell or a specific shape, it's going to be hidden. So now everything they select, regardless, it's just going to be hidden. That's what I want. It's going to be hidden automatically. Good. But when they click here, it's going to be shown. Okay, great. So now what happens when they select a specific day? That's what I want to make sure of. They select a specific day. I want to make sure it goes to that day. So automatically, you know why it's going automatically? Because we have set specifically a date. But now we just need to make sure, because we've set B4, and we need to update this date. We want to update this to show the entire week. So we're going to set that up in a specific text here. We want to set that up. All right, but let's get the day, and also we want to refresh it. I want to make sure that we're refreshing on schedule. We need to refresh that. How do we do that? Well, that's going to be a change on B4. When B4 changes, we know to refresh that schedule. However, we make several changes to B4, so I only want it on specific changes and not on some changes. For example, when we go previous and next week, B4 is changing. I don't want to refresh the schedule on that type of change because it's done automatically. I only want B4 the change when we select this one. That's the only change. So how do we differentiate between those changes? Well, what we can do is we can use B2. B2 is our schedule load. We can turn that to true and back to false to differentiate between the two types of changes to B4. So what we want to do is we want to make an update inside the code. So inside this code, the first thing we want to do is when we show the calendar, we want to keep this specifically not. But when I make a change to B4 here, or I make a change to B4 here, I don't want anything to happen. So the first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to set B2 to true and then back to false in this macro, and then do the same thing for the next one. Equals, also the same thing for this week, true. So we're going to set it to true, and then we're going to set it back to false. Again, I need to differentiate between those two, and we can do it right here. We can set it back to false. Here equals false. Okay, so what that's going to do is set it so that way we can differentiate between the two types of changes. And then we're going to run the week view. So I'm going to do the same exact thing on the next week and the same exact thing on this week, because I want to make sure that we are not updating, we're not running any kind of a macro on B4 change except on the ones that we wanted to. So by setting B2 to true and false, making change, and then when we do a change event on B4, we're going to ensure that when changes are made to B4 and only when B2 equals false. In this case, when we select a specific here, what we're doing is we're setting the cell that we're going to select. And what that means is when we select a specific calendar day, it is that day, when we set up that specific cell, it is that day that's going to get this day, right? B4, when I select it, it is that specific day, B4, that's going to get that change. Notice, we've already set it up. So when we make that change, and again, screen updating true will take care of that. Although we should make sure update it, when we do that, we're going to make sure that we run that macro, and only when B4 changes. Notice it went to 12. So that's the kind of change. So when we make those updates, we want to make sure that on next week, on previous week, and also I want to make sure on this week too. This week too is very important. So we're going to change that to true and then back to false before the macro runs. Now, when we run this specific macro that we run, we want to make sure. So now we're going to focus on a B4 change event when B4 changes based on that. So we'll also make sure. So that's in the scheduling. It's going to be a change event on the schedule. So that's the one I want to focus on. So again, this is the selection change event. We're going to be focused on a change event, a worksheet change event. Change event here on the worksheet. So let's write it on. Let's say we may use let's see, change of B4. Let's call B4 from date. Run based on calendar selection, only. Okay, so if not, we're going to make a change. And of course, we want to make sure B2 is set to B4 and range B2 dot value equals false. Okay, then and only then do we want to run the specific macro. Then what do we want to do? Well, I want to make sure that we're going to run the right macro. So because we'll probably have this on day and week. So if range, because we have one on the day view as well, B3 dot value equals week, then we want to make sure that we run the week view refresh. Then schedule underscore week view and then refresh. That's the macro we want to run. And we'll have others there, but we want to make sure, okay, good. So now it's going to refresh on week view, but only if it's week view and only if B2 is false. So we're going to save that work. And then we're going to go ahead in the schedule and take a look here. Also, just on the calendar pop-up, I did add a set a default year in 2021. It was 0 there. So setting a default year, that never has to be done except the first time, and then it's going to always be reset. So a year goes here, a month goes here. That will VBA will take care of that, but if it's not set, you can put it in there. And then the current date, and then of course B4, right? This is the cell that's selected. That's based on the calendar. So whatever cell you select is going to be set here. This entire sheet can be hidden. This is the month and the number, and this is the year that we're set. So in case something doesn't look right, you can reset that. Okay, so back into the schedule screen, we can now set that up. I want to set our dates here to make sure that we have the right. I want to show the year here as well so we can see that. And okay, good. So now when we do is we select this. We still have to make a few small updates, and we select a specific week, right? And it's on the 17th. So if I show the 10th, we want that to refresh. Okay, I like that, except for this little thing showing here. I want to get rid of that with application screen updating on the refreshing of the day view. I want to make sure that we set that up because on week view, we want to do that. So again, let's go back in here on the week view selection. I want to run that again. So the scheduling week view, on that update here, this refresh at them, I want to make sure that we're doing reset calculation. It's going to update. I want to do this application, again, dot screen updating equals true. Refreshing that. Sometimes what you can do is set it back from false and back to true. Again, that often helps too, false and true, to get rid of those anomalies there. Okay, so let's try that and see if that updates it accordingly, and we get rid of that little, basically it's the shape that's left on the screen. Okay, so we're going to go up to here. All right, let's take a look inside. This schedule's not updating, but let's take a look why. Schedule load and schedule lesson are true. Now those shouldn't be true. Those are only true when we're loading it. But why are they true now? Why have we run this macro and why are they true? Probably because we're exiting out of the sub. So let's make sure, here we're setting them to false all the way at the down, right? But what happens when we exit out of the macro without resetting them? Remember, we're setting them to true, but here's the problem. Make sure when you exit the sub, we need, before we, in any instance, in case there's nothing, we need to make sure we set them to false before we exit out of them, just like this. So every instance where we exit out, exit sub, we do. There's just two instances in here. We need to make sure that we do. Why would we exit out? Well, we would exit out if there's no data in our results, right? Look at this. There's no data in those results, so that's why we might exit out. No data here, we would exit out. Nothing to do if we're on a week view with no schedule. So as long as we reset those to false, and now when we set the week view, and now when we set the day view, even when there's no results, they're going to be set back to false. Okay, just a few more updates and changes on this to make it just right. We've set B4, we've set it for the current day, but we really want to set B4. Once it's calculated, we want to set B4 for that first day of the week, and that's going to be on BN2. So let's update that code so we can get everything working right. Make a few small changes right here. Before we actually update that, we've set the date in B4, but we want to do a few things. I want to make sure that we're going to turn off application enable events. Application because I need to make another update to B4 enable events equals false. Okay, make sure that. I also want to make sure that we're calculating here. So we're going to do calculate, and that's going to calculate that first day of the week located in BN2. Once that happens, of course, we're going to turn on application.enable events. We're going to turn that back on, but inside that, what we're going to do is I'm going to update B4 once more. So in this case, range B4 dot value is going to equal that calculated first day, and that's coming from BN2. Range BN2, that's the calculated first day of the week, dot value. And of course, the last day is going to also be based on BZ2, and that's going to be B5. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it down here. B5 is going to take on the last day of the week, and that's going to come from BZ2. We're going to call this the last day of the week, and we're going to call this the first day of the week. First day of the week. Okay, so we've got those set. We've turned on this. This is going to keep it from looping out because we're making a change to B4 here, making a change to B4 here. Also, before we want to do, I want to also then hide the calendar. So it's going to be calendar hide. That's the macro that's going to actually run in. So we've got a macro that's in our pop-up. And then the last thing we do is refresh. So we've set those days, we refresh the calendar, and that's all we're going to do. So if, and then of course we need to do an end if, right? And if, add in that end if. So that's all based on the week. So here's what we're going to do. If there's a change to B4 and there's B2 is false, then we're going to do all this only on a week view. In a day view, we'll do something else. So we're going to save our work. Let's go ahead and make that update. Now, when I select a specific day of the week, it's going to automatically update. And let's go back to that 17 and make sure that that week, there we go. That's the way I like it. Perfect. Okay, good. We've covered a lot. We've showed you in this week how to create this really cool, amazing week view with dynamic start days, with dynamic days, and even including specific work and non-work days. We've shown you how we can actually add drag and drop feature to this specific calendar along with a single click. We also have a single click previous and next week along with a this week and along with a pop-up calendar. All we need to do now is just update this top text. I want to make sure instead of B6, we're going to use a range because we want it from the first day of the week to the last day of the week. All we need to do is tie that to a brand new cell. So we can just call this, let's take a look. We're using this. So let's call this week text, okay? Week header text. That's fine enough. So basically it's going to be from the start date. So we just need to format it. So it's going to be equals to, and I want to use a text format. I want to use a specific format. What format do I want to use? Well, I want to use the same, pretty much the same format as this. So what format is this? We can just copy that, look at that, and go into the more number formats. We can go to customs, and all we need to do is just copy this right here. I like that format here. So copy that and click OK, and we can use that. Now back in our formula, we're going to use equals text, and we want a specific format. That first day it's going to be here, and we're going to format inside parentheses, pasting that in that we copied text, and right, we want quotation marks and then a space and then a dash and then another space, and then we want and quotation marks, and then basically we're going to do the same thing here, except we're going to use B5. So it's going to copy that, and we're going to update that to B5. That's going to set our text for our header. All we need to do now is tie this specific to the specific cell, B24. So again, and then increase the width. So then we may want to increase the font. So then this, but instead of B6, we're going to make this B24. All right, and then of course it's going to go back to black every time we reset it. So we're going to reset that to white and then increase the font a little bit. So obviously we don't want it that. That's good. I like that there. We can set a bold. Perfect. Now we got that. Now we got this full time. All right, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us on this incredible training. We've had such a good time building this week view scheduler. Next week we've got month view. You won't want to miss it. We're going to be building it from scratch. I do appreciate you visiting us. If you do like these trainings, you want to help support us, I've got 175 of my best workbooks. I pack them all into a single zip file and put it out there for just $66. That goes a long way to helping us. Or of course, you want to try that mentorship program, now's the best time. It's just $7, and that's going to get you 5 weeks of content, nearly 8 hours of video, and a ton of downloads and bonuses. No obligation, continue. I hope that training has helped you, and we're looking forward to bringing you next week, and we'll see you then. Thanks so much.